Welcome back. I hope everybody's new year is off to a fantastic start and you all had a relaxing and rejuvenating holiday break. So, today we are going to be talking about classroom organization using the class framework as a guide to understand how these three components come together to create a strong environment for student learning and emotional growth. Classroom organization within the class framework. The class framework is a coaching or assessment tool that helps us see how effective teachers are at student instruction. So, when we talk about classroom organization within the class framework, it encompasses these three areas: behavior management, productivity, and instructional learning formats. So we're going to do a quick overview, then we're going to chat about behavior management, productivity, and then instructional learning formats is really where we're going to focus a lot of our energies as we go through understanding this domain. So our goals are to identify the three dimensions of classroom organization and their associated indicators. So again, the domain is classroom organization, and there are three dimensions within classroom organization. And within those dimensions, there are also indicators that let you know the quality or the level of those dimensions. We're going to align strategies and ECR's best practices to the dimensions of classroom organization. Luckily, since we're working with ECR, a lot of really good strategies are already embedded into the curriculum. So I just want to really highlight those so that you guys know how to use them. And finally, when we meet, we're going to have a chance to practice implementing these aligned strategies to our current classroom efforts. So here it is, our Every Child Ready guiding principles. You guys probably know all these by heart by now, but we're going to focus on the principles of intentional and balance today. It takes intentionality for effective classroom instruction organization. Teachers need to plan, practice, and reflect to create a classroom with strong organization. Balanced is another guiding principle that reflects the content of today's work. These dimensions within the class framework support children's development across social, emotional, physical, cognitive, and academic competencies. Class framework, the classroom assessment tool, is looking for a holistic view of the classroom. I really want you to keep this in mind as we go through this. It's not looking for just one specific thing. We're looking for little pieces across the entire classroom to indicate high quality. So I got to point out, these are my little babies when I used to teach at Parklands. So classroom organization can help students develop skills to regulate their own behavior. It can help them get the most out of each school day, and it can help them maintain interest in the learning activities. So they really culminate in the way that teachers can coordinate their classroom to be a predictable and productive learning environment. So think about little kids, right? Having a predictable environment is really important. They know what's coming up next. And it also leads to productivity. So let's take a deeper look. All right, behavior management. This is probably fresh on your minds as we are back from break. Behavior management encompasses your ability as the teacher to provide clear behavior expectations and use effective methods to prevent, that's always the goal, and if it happens, to redirect misbehavior if it occurs. So let's talk a little bit about behavior management. These are the 4 indicators. So these are the things that show us if behavior management is working. So clear behavior expectations are set frequently and consistently. Your kiddos are 3, 4, and 5. That means they might need a reminder every 3, 4, or 5 minutes. These behavior expectations are reinforced by all of the adults in the room, whether it's through a nonverbal, whether it's through a quick reminder. Your students aren't trying to misbehave, they just need reminders and they need clear expectations. Proactive behavior management keeps problems from developing. So this could be simple, like making sure all students have materials before an activity. My kiddo was playing outside with a neighbor the other day, and I noticed they were starting to fight over one truck that I had put outside. I fixed that real quick by bringing out a couple more trucks. Then they were able to play nicely. Little things like that. You can do that in your classroom. It also includes reinforcement of positive behavior. So if you see a student doing a really good job, make sure you call them out. It means a lot and it'll keep them doing it. Redirection of misbehavior is quick and it doesn't take away from learning. Remember, you don't need to make a big deal out of it. You just need to redirect and move on. Your goal is also to focus on the positives so that if students need a reminder of what to do, the teacher can praise students who are already doing the right thing or remind students what they're doing. For example, if a student is having trouble remembering that they should be walking in the hallway and they're running, instead of yelling, "Stop running," then the kids are only going to hear running. You should tell them, "Remember, we're using our walking feet." It might be a couple more words, but it helps reinforce what the student should be doing and not focusing on what they're not doing. Finally, student behavior in a classroom with good behavior management is typically good student behavior. Of course, your kids are 3, 4, and 5, so there will be pockets of students that need support, but this should be handled quickly while still keeping the focus positive and keeping it on learning. All right, let's take a look at some ECR strategies that align with behavior. So often behavior expectations are written into lessons. For example, there's a Learning Lab lesson for preschool that says, "In Learning Lab, we're going to learn all about bubbles. Today we will observe bubbles." Remember, observe means to look and describe, and the teacher is pointing at their eyes and pointing at their mouth for the word describe to remind students that we're not touching the bubbles, we're not popping them, we're not jumping up and down. And you could go a step further. You know your kiddos. So if you need to remind them to stay on their bottoms or to use their looking eyes, whatever they need. But remember, you're being proactive. These mean that you tell students the expectations before the lesson begins and before the problems begin, right? So when you're redirecting misbehavior, we want to focus on the positive, on the what to do, instead of what not to do. It might take some time and practice. It's not instinctual, and it takes some practice as a teacher too. But student behavior will follow. Reminding students of behavior expectations for positive framing, for example, phrases like use your walking feet, stay in your seat, listen with a quiet mouth. These things can all go a long way in setting students up for success.